Oh, don't worry. We are going to be talking about Vancouver Canucks centers in this show. This video, though, is not going to go over the big response and the backlash and the arguments and the animosity and the annoyance and the sad part, whatever it is, part 5, part 6 of the Elias Pettersson saga. We'll make another video later in today's show talking about that, but for now, we are talking about centers on the trade block. Guys that could be moved, and names that could be quote-unquote reunited. Now, this is a little bit of a later topic because this was initially introduced to us on the weekend. This is responding to Elliotte Friedman and the comments that he had made on Saturday headlines on, of course, Saturday. But as always, this show is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Go out there and check out the first link in the description to save some money on your VPN, get some free months, and support this YouTube channel all in the process. We are diving into what Elliotte Friedman spoke about. He said this, that NHL teams are exploring the idea of uniting Brayden Schenn and Luke Schenn via a trade. This article by Gabriel Foley will be linked in the description. The trade deadline is right around the corner, and the list of difference makers on the open market is few and far between. Of the list of names circulating trade rumors, only 2 players offer the experience of being a 1,000-game veteran, former Stanley Cup champion, and wearing a letter for their team. Nashville Predators D-man Luke Schenn and St. Louis Blues forward Brayden Schenn. With both players seemingly expendable options on teams that aren't headed for the playoffs, other teams are beginning to wonder what it would take to acquire both brothers at the deadline. Sportsnet's Elliotte Friedman shared on the latest Saturday headlines. And this, of course, is a pretty nutty idea. We have seen the brother combos in the NHL in the past, the Sedins, the Stahls, I think the Josephs were on the same team at one point, and hell, even the Schenns. They were both in Philadelphia at the same time in the 2010s. Both Brayden and Luke were teammates with each other. Luke Schenn was a Toronto Maple Leafs guy, and he eventually found himself in Philadelphia, LA, Arizona, Anaheim, Vancouver, Tampa Bay, Vancouver, Toronto, Nashville. He's been around the block, that Luke Schenn. Meanwhile, Brayden Schenn has been kind of stagnant. He hasn't been moving around the league as much as Luke did, especially in the late 2010s, early 2020s era. Luke was moving around everywhere, but Brayden has stayed with the Blues ever since 2017-18, where he won a Stanley Cup the next season. Brayden and Luke Schenn have both been very solid hockey players the past few years, and you can say that age has caught up to them. Luke is 35, Brayden is 33, but it still needs to be said that these guys are effective NHL hockey players, even though the point production could be varying to some degree. Luke Schenn had the most productive season he has had in a very long time, a few years ago with Vancouver, where he had 21 points in 55 games played. This season, he's got 5 points in 56 games with the Predators, which isn't great, but a lot of Preds fans would still go out there and say that, hey, this is a solid defenseman option, a right-handed guy who knows what he's doing and who has that pedigree to be able to help most NHL teams in a shutdown role. Meanwhile, Brayden Schenn in St. Louis, while he isn't a 70-point guy this season, he's on pace for 47 points. He's got 33 in 58 games played right now. The Blues are a lot worse this season than they have been recently. So Brayden Schenn, going through more of a transitioning St. Louis system. Obviously, the production is not going to be as strong as it was in prior years. So with both of these guys potentially being in the market, especially to the capacity that other NHL teams would be interested in acquiring both, this is where we dive into some of the Vancouver angles, because I do think there are some really interesting opportunities to talk about the Vancouver Canucks, like this article that was posted also on ProHockeyRumors.com. Take a look at this, examining speculative Canucks center targets. Thomas Drance and Harman Dale of The Athletic took a look at potential trade targets for the Vancouver Canucks as they head into the trade deadline. The Canucks have reportedly identified center as a position to improve, which makes sense given that they just shipped out one of their top centers via trade. Vancouver entered the season with sky-high expectations, but has had an uneven season fueled mainly by internal issues between its top stars. However, with JT Miller now donning a New York Rangers jersey, the Canucks have heated up and collected points in 7 of their last 8 games. Make that 10 games. despite missing star D-man Quinn Hughes for an extended stretch. Now, this is where Drance and Dale write about Brayden Schenn. They identified him as an ideal trade candidate for Vancouver. Darren Dreger of TSN revealed last week that the Blues are gauging the market for their captain. Schenn has significant term remaining on his contract, 3 years at $6.5 million, but with a rising cap, his contract is less of an issue than it would have been in years past. Schenn isn't a high-end center, but it would possibly provide Vancouver with some offense and physical play. He had posted 11 goals and 21 assists in 56 games this season, and he could be a good fit with a pass-first player like Connor Garland. So, Brayden Schenn already being written about here as a potential Vancouver Canucks trade target. Interesting. I'm also thinking about the idea of Luke Schenn. Because if teams are going out there and seriously considering Brayden and Luke getting united again like they were in Philadelphia, and if Vancouver is one of these teams that could potentially get involved in Brayden Schenn trade talks, I wonder if there's a possibility they make the trade for Luke too. Can Schenn be reunited in Vancouver? Can there be 3 Petterssons and 2 Schenns? Who really knows? We gotta remember, when Luke Schenn was in Vancouver, he played number 1 minutes with Quinn Hughes, and he was pretty good in that spot. Quinn was really excellent when he played alongside of an immediate shutdown guy like Schenn. And I get it. One of the responses that could definitely pop up with that conversation is like, okay, do you really want to put Schenn with Hughes? Why not put Hronek with Hughes? Maximize that offensive potential. Or why don't you keep Myers with Hughes? Because that pairing worked. Here's the thing. Is Myers-Hughes really going to work out for the rest of the season? Especially when Hughes comes back? Myers has been struggling again lately, so who knows if Quinn Hughes is really going to be able to bring his game back up, or if Myers will bring Hughes' game down a tad. Why don't you go with a pairing that we know works, diversify the offensive productivity by having Hronek on the second pairing with a Marcus Pettersson, and then you have Elias Pettersson with a Myers on the third pairing, sheltered minutes, not as big of a responsibility, and you're able to get the best out of all these guys, because when Tyler Myers plays less minutes, that's when he's actually more effective. I do think that Luke Schenn in Vancouver would be an interesting idea, and not just because we had it already twice. We had 2 separate stints of Luke Schenn with the Vancouver Canucks, and they were both very successful. Now, you could also debate whether or not that would really be worth it for Schenn right now, because Luke Schenn has been not really played as much as the number 1 D-man like he was during a certain time in Vancouver a few years ago. He has been more in that 15 to 18 minute range, and that seems to be more comfortable for him at this point in his career, especially since he's 35 years old. But then you could put Hughes and Hronek together, and you could have Marcus Pettersson and Schenn together too. That would be a really good shutdown pair. Nobody would be able to touch that. And if you really wanted to force it, you could put Myers on the third pairing as well, have him and his services round out with Elias Pettersson. There certainly are options here. Brayden Schenn, I think, would be a nice addition to the Vancouver forward core as well. I do like this idea, man. Like, if you go over to the Nashville Predators subreddit, I wanted to look at a conversation they were talking about too, because they posted the Luke Schenn conversation as well, and they dove into this too. Per Elliotte Friedman, multiple teams are shopping for Luke Schenn. Here's from 32 Thoughts podcast earlier today. The actual rumor is that multiple teams are shopping for both brothers, Luke and St. Louis captain Brayden. Luke is definitely the type of D-man and leader a team would want, but it sounds like the bigger issue would be getting Brayden. This is what some commenters are saying. Say what you want about Schenn during the regular season, because I would probably agree, but he was one of our best players last year in the playoffs. It would make sense for him to go to a contender. Yeah, I agree. He's definitely slow and old, but he can pair well with a mobile defenseman, and he likes to hit. Those are great skills to have when you're playing a 7-game series. He has also won 2 cups and is one of the most pro hockey players in the NHL. Could be a great addition to a locker room. He definitely seems like a solid locker room piece. So many of our younger guys have said how much they look up to him, how he was one of their favorite players growing up. I'm not crazy about him on the ice, but based on that, I'd keep him over some of our other players. And this is one of these things where it's like, yeah, if Luke Schenn was in Vancouver, maybe this entire JT Miller-Pettersson feud would not have happened, but we can talk more about Pettersson later in today's show. Don't worry, we are going to talk about Pettersson later in today's show, but for now, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the idea of the Vancouver Canucks potentially going after Brayden Schenn. Do you think Luke Schenn is also an option too? When you hear the rumors from Friedman saying that teams are thinking about getting both of them, would Vancouver benefit from acquiring 2 Schenns who are in their mid-30s? Let me know in the comment section below what you think. I hope you enjoyed this video. 99 and bye.